Hi, this is Les and Amy from the RevGenetics Podcast. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube and now on Spotify, where we do a deep dive on supplements and longevity studies.
Today, we are donning our trench coats and becoming food detectives.
I like it.
We're investigating a massive comparative study that looks at 3 neighbors in East Asia, China, Japan, and Korea to, figure out why some of these populations are living longer and staying healthier.
And the mission for this deep dive is pretty specific. We're not just looking for general advice like eat your vegetables. We're looking for a secret weapon, a specific kind of food that the data suggests might act as a biological shield against the big killers, like heart disease and memory loss.
Exactly. We're looking at a massive data set spanning over a decade, from 2010 to 2022. It's a fascinating, really granular look at who is eating what and how a specific category of aquatic food products might be the key to aging well.
And when you say aquatic food, that's everything. Fish, shellfish.
Everything. Fish, shellfish, even seaweed.
I love that. It's like a dietary treasure map. We've got 3 countries, different habits, different economies, and, well, different health outcomes. We're going to find out what the aquatic advantage really is.
And if we can copy it.
Right. And more importantly, if we can replicate it without moving to a fishing village.
That's the goal. Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have our 3 contestants in this longevity study: Japan, Korea, and China. Now, looking at the charts, the correlation, it seems pretty obvious on the surface.
It does.
Japan eats the most fish, and they live the longest. But I have to play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Japan is also wealthy. They walk everywhere. They drink a ton of green tea. How does the study know it's the fish doing the heavy lifting and not just, being Japanese?
That is the million-dollar question. And that's why this study is so important. It attempts to isolate that aquatic advantage from all that other noise. They didn't just look at lifespan. They looked at health span and specific causes of death.
Yeah.
And when you look at the Japanese data, even after you adjust for things like income and smoking, the people with the highest omega-3 levels in their blood consistently had the lowest rates of cardiovascular events.
So it's not just about living to 84. It's about avoiding the hospital for the last 10 years of your life.
Precisely. Japan is currently the gold medalist here. Life expectancy around 84 years. Korea is taking silver, very close behind at 83.5.
Wow.
But China is the bronze medalist, sitting around 78 years. That's a 6-year gap.
A whole 6 years. And when you dig into the why, the consumption numbers are, well, they're staggering.
They really are.
I'm looking at these daily intake numbers. Japan is at nearly 70 grams of aquatic food a day.
Right. To put that in perspective, that's a decent portion to fish every single day. It's a staple.
The staple protein, yeah.
Korea is close at about 60 grams, but China,
it's way lower.
They're eating about half of what Japan eats, roughly 38 grams a day.
That is a huge discrepancy. So Japan doubles China's fish intake and gets 6 years of life. But let's get a little technical for a minute. You mentioned omega-3s. We hear that term everywhere. Heart healthy, brain food. But what is it actually doing? Is it just like greasing the wheels?
It's a bit more structural than that. Think of your body as a house made of billions of bricks.
Okay, bricks.
Those are your cells. Every cell has an outer wall, a membrane. Now, if you build that wall out of, say, saturated fats like from bacon or burgers, the wall is stiff. It's rigid.
Okay, so a rigid wall sounds strong, but I'm guessing in biology, rigid is bad.
In biology, rigid is terrible. You want flexibility. When you eat aquatic foods, you're getting EPA and DHA. Those are the specific omega-3s.
Right.
These molecules physically build themselves into your cell walls. They make the cells, well, squishy.
Squishy. So we want to be squishy.
We definitely want to be squishy. A squishy, flexible red blood cell can squeeze through tiny capillaries to deliver oxygen. A flexible artery can expand and contract to manage blood pressure.
Without cracking or collecting plaque.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Japan's population is essentially running on a flexible biological infrastructure, whereas the lower fish diets are leading to stiffer, more inflammation-prone arteries.
That makes so much sense. It's not just fuel, it's the actual construction material.
Yeah.
But here's where I get confused about the map. China is huge. They have a massive coastline. Why aren't they eating as much fish as Japan? Is it just a taste preference?
It's not about taste. It's about logistics and economics. We call it the cold chain issue.
The cold chain.
Think about it. Japan is an island chain. No matter where you are, you're pretty close to the ocean.
Yeah, sure.
The logistics of getting a fish from a boat to a dinner plate in Tokyo are incredibly efficient. It can take just hours.
Right. You can get sushi at a convenience store there, and it's still fresh.
Exactly. And now look at China. It's a massive landmass.
Yeah.
If you live in a coastal city like Shanghai, sure, you have fish. But if you live inland, say, in the mountains of Sichuan,
You're thousands of kilometers from the ocean.
right, so it's a trucking problem. It's a massive infrastructure hurdle. To get fresh fish to the interior, you need a perfect chain of refrigerated trucks, warehouses, markets.
The cold chain.
And if that chain breaks at any point, the fish spoils. Historically, China just didn't have that network fully built out inland.
So if you're a family in inland China, fish isn't a Tuesday night option. It's either unavailable, spoiled, or just crazy expensive.
Exactly. And because of that scarcity, the inland diet just evolved differently. They relied on pork, poultry, and greens, things you can raise in your backyard or transport easily without a freezer.
So the study is saying this logistical gap is a primary reason why China's cardiovascular health lags behind.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle. It's not that they don't want the healthy food. For decades, they physically couldn't get it.
It's wild to think that longevity statistics are dictated by the number of freezer trucks on the highway.
It really brings it back to economics. In Japan and Korea, the cold chain is mature. In China, it's developing fast. But for a long time, geography was destiny.
You know, it's great to have RevGenetics with us for this discussion.
It really is. I mean, RevGenetics has been dedicated to the science of aging for so long, focusing on these evidence-based natural compounds like their high-quality micronized resveratrol and NMN that really align with the kind of longevity goals we see in these studies.
Totally. Whether it's understanding the supply chain of your groceries or the science behind a supplement, taking control of your health span it's the ultimate goal. So we've established that Japan wins on volume and supply chain. But there was this twist in the study that I found really worrying. It's about the cooking, because Korea eats almost as much fish as Japan, but they don't get the same health profit from it. Why is that?
This is the preparation trap. And honestly, this is the most actionable part for anyone listening. We tend to think a food is healthy no matter what we do to it.
Oh, I'm so guilty of this. If I order fish and chips, I tell myself I'm having a healthy meal because there's a cod fillet in there somewhere.
And the data says you're kidding yourself. The study distinguishes between aquatic food intake and nutritional gain. Korea has high intake, but they have a cultural preference for certain cooking methods that just undercut the benefits.
We're talking about the fryer.
The fryer and the salt. When you deep fry fish, you're hitting it with incredibly high temperatures in vegetable oils that are, high in omega-6 fatty acids.
Which are the pro-inflammatory ones.
Exactly. So you're taking this anti-inflammatory fish and wrapping it in a pro-inflammatory coating.
So they cancel each other out.
It's worse than that. High heat frying creates something called AG's advanced glycation end products.
That sounds like something I do not want in my arteries.
You really don't. Think of AGs as biological gunk. They're compounds formed when fat and protein are blasted with heat, and they're linked to aging and chronic disease.
Wow.
So in parts of Korea and China, where fish is often heavily battered, deep fried, or stewed in spicy, salty sauces, sometimes to mask the taste of not-so-fresh fish.
You're taking a longevity pill and turning it into a salt bomb?
Exactly. Japan's numbers are so high because their preferred preparation methods, raw sashimi, steaming, or very light grilling, they respect the chemistry of the fish.
They preserve the omega-3s.
And they don't add the toxins.
Respect the chemistry. I like that. It's not just a foodie rule, it's a survival rule. But speaking of survival, let's talk about the brain.
Okay.
We touched on it earlier, but the Alzheimer's connection in this study was stark.
It was a seesaw effect. High fish consumption in Japan correlated with lower Alzheimer's rates.
And on the other side?
Lower consumption in China correlated with higher rates.
Is that the squishy cell thing again?
In the brain, we call it neuroprotection. Your brain is mostly fat. It just craves DHA to repair itself and maintain those electrical connections.
So the hope is, if populations, especially aging ones like China's, can solve that cold chain issue and start eating more omega-3s,
we might see a massive drop in dementia rates.
That's the hopeful part. But there's a storm cloud on the horizon, isn't there? The pizza and burger problem.
The westernization of the palate. Yeah, this is the biggest risk the researchers identified for the future.
So what's happening?
Well, you look at the younger generation in these countries. To a teenager in Shanghai or Tokyo, traditional steamed fish and rice can feel old-fashioned.
It's what their grandparents eat.
Right. And they want what they see on TikTok and in movies.
They want the burger.
They want the status symbols.
Yeah.
In many of these regions, beef has historically been a luxury item. So eating a burger feels modern and affluent. Eating fish feels like basic sustenance.
So we have a situation where the youth are voluntarily giving up the aquatic advantage.
Exactly. The data shows a sharp rise in red meat and processed food consumption among the under 30s. If this trend continues, those beautiful longevity statistics we see in Japan could crash.
Wow.
They might inherit the heart disease rates of the West just as they get rich enough to afford the cure.
That is a sobering thought. We assume progress always means living longer, but if the diet goes backward, the lifespan follows.
It's a real danger, and the only firewall against it is education. Japan has this system called shokuku.
Shokuku.
It means food education.
Yeah.
It's mandated by law.
No way.
They teach kids in school how to eat fish, how to use chopsticks properly, and why these traditional foods make them strong.
That is brilliant. So instead of just serving mystery meat in the cafeteria, they're actually teaching longevity habits as part of the curriculum.
It's building a cultural defense.
Oh.
If you teach a child to appreciate the taste of simple steamed fish, they might not run straight for the fast food joint every day when they grow up.
So, okay, pulling this all together, we have a natural, powerful tool to fight heart disease and keep our brains sharp.
We do.
But to make it work, we need the logistics to get it fresh, the discipline to cook it simply, and the education to make sure the next generation actually wants to eat it.
That is the perfect summary. It's not magic, it's logistics, chemistry, and culture all working together.
Well, whether you are listening to this in Tokyo, Seoul, or a landlocked city anywhere else in the world, the lesson is the same. Prioritize the ocean's protein and respect the preparation.
Yes. Don't undo all that good work with a deep fryer. We hope you enjoyed learning about today's study with us.
Thank you for listening to the RevGenetics Podcast.
RevGenetics.com for the best longevity supplements on Earth.